Welcome back. I'm Cabell Willis with the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, here at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. We're joined today by panelists from the core institutes of the National Endowment for Democracy to talk about their work and current challenges to supporting democracy around the world as part of our Human Rights Heroes series. With me now are Ken Wallach and Dan Twining, of the presidents of the National Democratic Institute and International Republican Institute, respectively. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
Could you each give a brief overview of your organizations and the work that you are doing to support democracy around the world?
We'll have to be very brief, I guess. I think our organizations, from its very founding, was dedicated to the notion of democratic politics in countries. That certainly governments that could deliver civil society engagement, but political parties and political institutions like parliaments had a function as institutions of representative democracy. And if these institutions failed, the institutions of representative democracy, the entire democratic system would be placed in jeopardy. So our primary partners in these countries are these political institutions, both political parties and parliaments. And when we work on issues of women's empowerment, civil society development, democratic elections, we work on the political side of these issues, helping civil society engage in the politics of the country to help elections that enjoys the confidence of the contestants and the citizens themselves. So it's all about democratic politics. And it's about something that I refer to, a landmark study that was done by the UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, in 2002, which came to the conclusion in a very lengthy study that democratic politics and democracy itself is not only the end of human development, but the best means to achieve human development as well.
Valuable insight. Dan?
So just to build on what Ken said, the work really is focused on political participation, political inclusion, helping underrepresented voices, often women and young people, participate in their country's politics. We are not picking winners or picking sides. We are interested in a level playing field where citizens of that country can make their own choice about what's best for them. In lots of one-party states, that often means working with opposition parties, obviously, but we also work with lots of governing parties. We also very much use polling resources to help politicians understand what their citizens actually want and help them drive a form of politics that is issue-based rather than personality-based, right? Lots of countries we work in, politics is all about strong leaders. Politics is often disconnected from what grassroots citizens really actually care about. And so helping that interface is central to what we do.
These are difficult things to reconcile. Thanks for working on them. Another question, what are the current challenges that NDI and IRI face in their work, and how have these challenges evolved over the years?
I would say that there are two overarching challenges. The first is what is called authoritarian learning, where you have for the first time a community of autocrats around the world who are using both traditional means and untraditional means to clamp down on independent thought, independent organizing, for fear that you open a political system that it's going to overwhelm them, that ultimately the system will take over. Citizens will take over the system. So they resist any diffusion of political power. And they're learning from each other. So a law that restricts civil society in one country will appear in another country a week or a month later. So that's the first challenge, closing space for civil society, closing space for political opposition, for media, and the breaking of linkages between these groups and the international community. The second challenge is new and emerging democracies that are having the challenge to deliver on the promise of democracy. They inherit the legacies of their non-democratic predecessors, poverty, disease, political inaction by citizens, apathy. And if these societies, as they build or rebuild their political systems, don't deliver on behalf of the citizens at large, then what is going to happen is people will go to the streets, or they'll vote for a populist leader who will promise easy answers to very complex questions. So helping these nascent and fledgling democracies sustain their democratic systems is, I think, one of the major challenges of the 21st century.
Thank you. Yeah.
So just to build on that, because I agree, we need to help Democrats deliver. When the United States was founded, we were about the only democracy in the world, the only democratic republic, right? Great Britain was a monarchy, etc. On paper now, there are over 100 democracies in the world, on paper. In fact, many of those have the form of democracy, but not the substance, right? You often have a dominant ruling party. You often do not have independent institutions capable of providing checks and balances. You often don't have independent judicial oversight. You often have a media landscape that is not at all free. So a lot of the work we are doing in countries that are democratic, but helping them build out their democracy so that they are real and substantial and there's genuine citizen participation and choice, right? And it's not all simply, doesn't look like what's happening in Cambodia this week, which is that there is a government there under a strongman that is having a quote-unquote election. The leaders of the opposition political parties are all in jail or in exile, right? There is no free media. The government has shut down most of the independent media. That's not actually an election, right? And so I think distinguishing between the forms of democracy and the genuine spirit of political freedom and political choice is central to our work.
Very important things to keep in mind, certainly. A final question for you. How are you and your organizations adapting your work to meet these evolving challenges?
So one of the big adaptations we are making is looking at the fact that really we have ideological competition in the world. There are authoritarian great powers in the form of Russia and China that in different ways are actually working to undermine democratic order in other countries. That's something we haven't had since the Cold War, right? The 90s, the 2000s, there were other challenges to this work. But you now have great power ideological competitors who are projecting a different model. The Trump administration's national security strategy, national defense strategy talk about China's and Russia's state-directed efforts to export an authoritarian model and the challenges that that poses to the American-led open world order. So I think recognizing that we have great power competition, that we are working to help citizens choose freely at the same time that other countries are trying to suppress freedom of choice, political choice in third countries. That's a challenge for us and one that we are adapting to engage with.
I think the most important part of this is the recognition that this is not an American enterprise, that we are part of a large international network of small d democratic organizations, democratic governments, democratic intergovernmental organizations. And we can perform best when we build up these alliances and work in country in partnership with others. So in these countries, they don't see this as a binary choice between China and the United States, for example, but they see an alternative governance model that is citizen-centric, that is enjoyed by a large community of countries that have been more or less successful, both economically and politically. And so if we could do a better job of strengthening the international architecture around democracy, we can build external incentives for reform and support internal incentives for reform in these countries. And the demand is there. And the demand not only for democratic governance in their own countries, but the demand is there for international engagement and support for those aspirations.
We'll certainly try to strengthen those networks. Thank you both for your work and your organization's work to do so as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, gentlemen, for taking the time to speak with us. And thank you to our audience and to all of our panelists for joining us today, especially to Dan Runde and his team at CSIS for organizing and hosting this event and for allowing us to participate. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and that you'll join us again and follow us on Facebook and Twitter @StateDRL to learn more about the State Department's work to support democracy and human rights along our panelists from the National Endowment for Democracy, Center for International Private Enterprise, National Democratic Institute, and International Republican Institute.